What's going on, y'all? Okay, so there's a new series that come on right after Bad Girls Club called Sisterhood of Hip Hop, and I'm debating on whether to, review it on a regular. So if you guys like the show, if you want me to continue to review it, please put it down in the comments. But on this first episode, basically what it is introducing us to five young female MCs, and their different backgrounds. When the show starts off, we start off with Saya, who is, she's a lesbian rapper, stud like a motherfucker, bitch. She hardcore. Look, that kind of warmed my heart a little bit to see that she from New York, and she is basically trying to be herself. And she did say that there was some labels that passed up on her and things that didn't go through because they were trying to change her. And she was like, no, this is me. This is who I am, and this is how I'm gonna be. So she put it out there that she's gay. She's gonna be like the first gay female hip hop artist. And I really appreciate that she's staying true to herself and she's not trying to conform. But it's also going to cause some trouble because, of course, even though it's 2014 or 2013, whenever this shit was filmed, people still, want to look at female artists, especially rap artists, in this feminine way, So therefore, she's going to get a lot of slack, and I can already see that. She's signed or being managed by Tank, the singer, R&B singer, and she's having her little issue with him because she was like, it's a good thing he saw me on Twitter, hit me up, and we conversed or whatever. But seeing that he's an R&B dude, probably be looked at differently or whatever. She has this girlfriend. I think her name is Renee. She is pretty as fuck. Like, her eyes are very pretty. And I think she was in Miami. She come up from Miami. They met on Instagram, bitch. They've been together for 2 years, and their little situation is cute. And she's showing that she's supportive of her for the moment. And I was like, okay, that's fine. Then we get to Brianna Perry, and what I like about Brianna right off the back is the fact that Brianna was doing all this rap stuff. She give her little history how her uncle was best friends with the founder of Po Boy Records, and she was basically signed to Po Boy Records since she was young. And she's been around a whole bunch of rappers, always been in the studio, Flo Rida, Rick Ross is like her mentor. And, she got signed to Atlantic Records. Her mother, Kiki, is her manager. And she's doing all of this stuff, but yet she's still in school in an actual university studying business and economics and all this stuff. And when, you go back and you listen to her do some interviews, in the way that she was talking about it, like she's talking about it, she's looking at the broader perspective. If you ask me, she want to be involved in her business, not just the music but the business side. And I appreciate the fact that she's going to school and she doing this. And she recently graduated, so big ups to her. She was in the booth trying to do some song. Her mama was like, girl, you got to come harder than that. Kiki is a Kiki, okay? I think I'm gonna like her mama, but her mama is kind of overbearing. And I was just sitting, was it just me? But I'm like, does she be at the studio sessions all the time? What if she in there trying to talk about, some sexual stuff on the record or whatever? Do her mama be up in there like, girl, I'd be so embarrassed or whatever? Like, mama, you sitting up in here like, it is what it is. And she was about to get ready to leave home and I guess go into her own apartment. And of course, she's being a mother. And, she don't want to see her baby gone and, stuff like that. It was cute. She was like, don't let me FaceTime you and see somebody under the covers seeing some muscles and all this shit. Brianna looking like, bitch, please. Look, the first time I really heard of Brianna Perry, you go SWV's latest album, Do You, Do You, Do Ya. Do you, do you? That was my favorite song because it was an up-tempo song and she was rapping on it. And I was like, okay, because it gave me a kind of a 1990s old school feel of Chi-Town juke music a little bit. Time for the percolator. It's time for the percolator. That was my shit. And I loved her on there. I was like, okay, she may be doing something. It's cool. The next person we get introduced to is Diamond from Crime Mob. You know, she's only 25 years old. I guess Lil Jon is her mentor. And, you know, she's in Atlanta. She's about to move to New York. They're talking about her information and her background, how she started off in crime. Mom, I think she was like 15 years old. You know, if you don't know any song about Crime Mob, you know Nuck if you buck, right? Nuck if you buck, and you know Stiletto. Why is my hair sticking out like that? Shit. Stiletto pumps in here, okay, in the club. You know, that was my shit back in the day. No lie, I had that first CD. But, you know, some shit happened within the group. Like, some fucked up shit happened. One of the dudes in the group was, you know, accused of child molestation or some shit like that. And I was like, oh. And I don't know if he went to jail or something. And somehow the group just broke up. And Diamond, I will say Diamond and Princess, the two females in the group, were the standout members of the group. But Diamond, I guess you could say she was more noticeable. I guess because she was probably the prettier one. I don't know, but the attention did always go to Diamond. Okay. And, you know, she was talking about her relationship, and they had played the little Breakfast Club interview that she did when she was talking about how she was with Scrappy and how he was abusive and, you know, he didn't know how to manage his money, how she hooked up with Soulja Boy, how they're just friends at the moment. And Lil Jon was telling her, baby, you just need to, you know, no more rappers. Get you somebody that work at the post office or regular Joe or something. And she was like, I'm thinking about moving to New York, and that's where the labels be at and all that stuff. And then he was like, that's a good idea. So I was like, okay, so far, so good. So then, you know, we get introduced to Bia. She's from Boston. She's Pharrell's artist. She basically said, you know, I don't know. Pharrell saw her on something and was like, you know, spit some bars, and if it's good, we gonna keep it on the song. If not, we ain't gonna fuck with you. She was like, I spit the craziest 16 ever. And I was like, okay, you know, I just, you know, I don't know. Sometimes you just look at some people and you be like, I just don't see you as a rapper. And she's one of those people that I'm like, girl, you should be doing something else. But I mean, we got to look at it to see how she is. I will say this. Get you a deal with Proactive after this. Because, girl, that adult acne is not the business right about now. But, I mean, them bumps was red on her face while she was talking to Pharrell. But, you know, put all that, it's showing the real shit. This is the real shit. Not none of that fake shit. You know, and he was giving her a little pep talk about how, you know, she got to matter to herself and how she got to take her shit seriously so everybody else can take her seriously and all this stuff. And, you know, how he's there for her. I was like, okay, cool. She has a little sister named Trini. I forget what her name is. But, she was like, she's looking out for her because she didn't have a big sister, and if she probably had a big sister, she probably wouldn't have did some of the things that she, you know, did in her past life or whatever, I guess. And, you know, she went down the wrong road at one point in time, and she lives with, I think, her grandparents, and she was talking, had this little heart to heart with her grandfather because she had basically a fucked up father. He wasn't a good father and all that shit, but, you know, typical shit. We didn't get much on her. Then we get this scene back with Diamond going over to, she's in Atlanta. She goes over to her mother's house. She said she comes from a big family. She has four sisters and two brothers. Now, two of her older sisters, I think, were there. Is her name Sharika or Sharika? And I forget the other one, but whatever. They were at the house. The stepdaddy was there. Her mother was there. All of them look like the mama. All of them look like the mama, and she basically made this announcement that she's gonna move to New York. And of course, it was some tears, but they understood what was going on, and I like the fact that they supported her. And she's just, you know, trying to make a name for herself, and she's trying to make an identity outside of being known as Diamond from Crime Mob to being just known as Diamond, a rapper in this industry. And I was like, okay, I get where you're coming from. We get back to Saya. Now, Saya takes her girl out, and basically they, you know, having this little conversation. And the girl, Renee, she's not from Miami, she's from California. She's out there. I think she does hair. She, Saya was basically like, she trying to introduce her to some people. It's almost as if she a little possessive or clingy because, she don't know nobody out there yet. She don't have friends out there yet. And it gets annoying at times. And I understand that. But she just trying to figure out what it is that she wants to do. Saya wants to do more shows out there in New York because that's her stomping ground, and the money is better, I guess, out in New York than it was in LA. She was like, she basically tired of going back and forth, and not really nothing happening. And I understand that. I think the person that probably got the most difficult task out of all of the female rappers that were shown on the show is Saya, because she's not effeminate. She does not fit the mold of what, the typical female rapper that's in the mainstream is. And she has an uphill battle to go. And I applaud her for continuing on and trying to make it, and not giving up and not changing who she is just to, sell a record or whatever, to get fans or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But in the mainstream. So they go to this Queen of the Rap battle thing, to support, just to look at. This is Saya's stomping ground, and she taking her girl there. And Renee, she was just making these comments like, oh my God, they can say all that stuff. They can do all that stuff. Look, I would have fucked the nigga up if he got in my face like that. Because that dude was all up in old girl's face. And so I was like, see, that's why I can't do this. Because, you could be friends and all that stuff. And they can go in on your friends. They can go in. You ain't friends in the battle, okay? They go in your parents, on your kids, on your family, on your, they just go in, okay, on you. Because that bitch that was up on there, she straight went for the way that other girl looked. I said, damn. Okay, them rap battles, they be fucking intense. And while they looking at the battle, not Naima Supreme, she's the fifth member of this show. She comes in and Saya sees her, was like, what's up? Automatically, Renee gets in her feelings, and it's almost as if she got a little jealous or annoyed that she was giving her attention, meaning acknowledging this girl, and told her to come down here. And Saya introduced her to Naima, and that stank ass attitude that Renee gave her, like, I was like, what was all that for? You secure, be secure, boo, because I'm pretty sure Naima Supreme don't fly that way. And it wasn't that big of a deal. And next thing you know, she's getting like, Saya and Naima Supreme having this little conversation. They've been to each other. Saya think that their friendship will be better, whatever, because they connect and all that stuff and yada yada yada. And they basically talking about what's going on with their business, and Saya's ready to release a mixtape, and Naima, she signed to Timbaland. And I'm mad they gave her like probably one of the shortest little intro. She signed to Timbaland. She said she had a fucked up childhood. I think she's the only child. Is she the only child? I think so. And, they did a little blurb on her. And she was basically saying, it's back in the day how when a female came out as a rapper, they always had to have a man behind her in order to be taken seriously and all this stuff. And I was like, that is true. And technically, it still goes on because, look, you're signed to Timbaland. All these girls are signed to men. I'm just saying. But, yeah, Renee was just giving all this type of attitude. And then Saya was like, what's wrong with you? She was like, I'm ready to go. I want to go home. I want to go back to Cali and all this shit. Bitch, Renee is going to be a problem. Renee is going to be a problem. I already see it. I already know on the preview that they showed a couple of weeks ago. She going to get into a fight with somebody. I just don't understand what's her issue, but we shall see. Y'all tell me how y'all felt about the show. So far, my top choice that I like, I like Saya. First, I just like everybody so far. Bria, on the other hand, I need a little bit more to completely like her. I don't want to judge her, but I'm trying to understand it. But, other than that, I'm liking everybody. I like Saya, of course, and no one's really turning me off yet. So y'all tell me if y'all watch this, Will you be watching it? Who you liking so far? And if you want me to continue to review it. And I will see you guys later. Peace.